You can't say it, but you know it's true. Good evening, everybody. It is an honor to be here at my last, and perhaps the last, White House Correspondents' Day. You all look great. The end of the Republic has never looked better. You can't say it, but you know it's true. My last, and perhaps the last, White House Correspondents' Day. The end of the Republic has never looked better. Let me just say something to all my conspiracy-oriented friends on the right who think I'm planning to unleash some secret agenda. You're absolutely right.
I had planned another closing message, but I feel compelled to say what I'm about to say. Now, I risk sounding like a conspiracy theorist, but it's no longer a theory. What I'm about to say is fact. The secret organizations of the world power elite are no longer secret. They have planned and are now leading us into a one-world communist government.
Yep. And those people who have been yelling, oh, the UN's going to take over global
conspiracy
government.
Theorists.
They've been crazy, but now they're right.
Yeah, well, when Geithner,
it's happening.
When Geithner said he would be open to the idea of a global currency last week,
yeah.
Those conspiracy people had said and suggested that for years.
They say trust us. Trust us, the people who brought us Katrina, to be competent in face of a disaster. Trust us, the people who brought us warrantless wiretapping and other excesses eroding our civil liberties. Trust us.
We shine the spotlight on an executive order that the White House was hoping that you would never learn about. Now, the president signed the National Defense Resources Preparedness Executive Order late Friday afternoon. Now, the order essentially gives the president of the United States absolute power over any and all American resources during both times of peace and national crisis. Now, this includes, but is not limited to, food and livestock, water, plants, energy, health resources, transportation, and construction materials, and gives the government the ability to, quote, control the general distribution of any material, including applicable services, in the civilian market.
Why would Homeland Security be involved in exerting power and influence over the heartland? The aims of the White House Rural Development Plan sound eerily similar to a UN plan called Agenda 21, where a central planning agency would be responsible for oversight into all areas of our lives, a one world order. Sound familiar?
You say that would mean that we, the people, the United States Constitution, would be circumvented at the altar of this one world what? One world government.
I really think he's going over there to try to create a one world order. God forbid this even that this happens in our country. Our country, as we know it now, will no longer exist.
But Senators McCain and Levin have added this legislation which would authorize the president to declare the entire United States of America, all 50 states and all territories, to be a battlefield, even though there's no battle, thanks be to God, going on here.
War on terror is different.
And that would authorize him to use commander-in-chief authority in the United States, to use the military to arrest people in the United States who, in the president's opinion, are enemies of the country. It would then permit him to incarcerate and detain these people indefinitely, to keep them from a lawyer, to keep them from a judge, to keep them from a jury, to lock them up for as long as he wants.
Okay.
Let's start first with the Department of Defense. The Department of Defense has just issued a new list of extremists that should be watched. And on that, in fact, number one, past the Muslim Brotherhood and past Hamas, Hezbollah, number one, evangelical Christians.
The Department of Homeland Security tonight warning of a new terrorist threat facing America. The threat comes from what it calls right-wing extremists in this country. The report says people who are opposed to restricting Second Amendment rights to bear arms or who are concerned about illegal immigration and border security could well fall under the Department of Homeland Security definition of an extremist.
You know, this is a story that we have been researching and following as the blogs have picked up on it, and developments continue. The Department of Homeland Security buying ammunition, now looking to purchase another 21 million rounds of ammunition. This in addition, of course, to the 1.6 billion rounds that Homeland Security has bought in just the past 10 months. Now, to put all of this in perspective, the military used approximately 70 million rounds each year of the Iraq War. 70 million rounds in a war. Back in July of 2008, you might recall, and this is part of the reason the blogs are picking up on this, presidential candidate, then Senator Barack Obama, proposed a civilian national security force. This is what he said.
We cannot continue to rely only on our military in order to achieve the national security objectives that we've set. We've got to have a civilian national security force that's just as powerful, just as strong, just as well funded.
Yeah, you got to have that, right? We're not aware of the president having created such a force. At least it's not, maybe it's covert, I don't know. But we can't help but wonder why the Department of Homeland Security should need more than 20 times as much ammunition as it took to fight the Iraq War.
The U.S. Department of Homeland Security has been buying up massive amounts of ammunition. Americans are wondering why.
Do you think this is a sign that they're preparing for some sort of mass civil unrest?
If you look at what the Department of Homeland Security has been purchasing over the last year, it comes out to like 1.6 billion rounds of ammunition, more than 7,000 fully automatic assault weapons, 2,700 MRAP type vehicles, and now drones. Those are instruments of war. Department of Homeland Security's, who are they going to fight a war against?
There are new disturbing developments out of Washington tonight regarding the president's belief that he has the legal authority to assassinate U.S. citizens. Incredibly enough, it appears that our commander-in-chief actually believes that authority exists not only on foreign soil, but right here on American soil as well, to authorize the military to use lethal force within the territory of the United States. In other words, yes, President Barack Obama has the ability to order the assassination of an American citizen on American soil.
I have two words for you: predator drones. You will never see it coming. You think I'm joking?
My name is Robert Whitaker. I'm the tactical supervisor for El Paso SRT for Homeland Security Investigations. Well, we have our big vehicle out here. It's an armored vehicle. It's an MRAP vehicle. It's mine resistant, ambush protected. That's what it stands for. This is what we use to deliver our team to high-risk warrant services.
While they're doing this, they're amassing this wealth in order to redirect it toward martial law endeavor, and not just in America, but globally. They want to lock down every country and force us into global governance, eventually force us into a global reserve currency that is like the Bancor that the IMF has been pushing.
The entire city of Boston is in lockdown. In the suburb of Watertown, police with guns drawn are searching door to door.
I mean, we had martial law up there. FBI and all these agents coming in and closing things down, going to people's houses.
So here's the article by Steve Watson. Military helicopters conduct covert exercises over U.S. bank buildings. This is all part of other drills going on to acclimate the public to being attacked by our own military that are happening here in the United States. Here it is.
LAPD and elite military units conducted extraordinary counterterrorism training in the skies above downtown LA tonight.
At one point, they made what appeared to be a drop-off at a park. Within seconds of landing, the helicopter was back in the air.
It was a strange sight in the skies over Los Angeles. Military Special Forces flying a practice mission last night, and there are more exercises scheduled for today.
And you were looking at footage of a massive martial law type military drill in Florida. This took place in downtown Fort Lauderdale. You can see the scale of this. Choppers everywhere. They're rounding people up in the streets. But they're saying this took place last night, yesterday evening. This is posted on Facebook. This has been shared by GMN. And as you can see, there's just choppers everywhere. They're in the streets, they're in the skies, in Florida, doing these drills. Let it be known. Miami saw the same thing, not this big a scale, just a few choppers, never marching people around in the street like this.
A pretty scary scene along the Chicago River turns out to be a military training exercise.
There was nothing routine that folks reported about seeing the jarring, as they witnessed the jarring scene of at least 3 Black Hawk helicopters flying at times in close order formation.
Just in, a military drill in downtown Miami, complete with these Black Hawk helicopters, elite soldiers and police officers swarming the street.
Take a look, swing back over here. This may be involved in this training or not. Again, let me tell you what all of this is that we know of. It's a joint military training exercise involving local police, also military.
Sight of Army helicopters and the sound of gunfire created a lot of concern this afternoon in one Houston neighborhood.
There were armed men in fatigues, plenty of weapons, and what many thought were real live rounds.
Black Hawk, I told you they were coming.
There's no lights on them. They look like bugs.
Does the government really have a list of American citizens that they plan to round up under martial law and imprison in FEMA concentration camps with no due process because they see us as dangers to national security? Christians, gun owners, veterans, homeschoolers, other patriots, Tea Party members. The answer is yes. Fox News back in the day just debunked these evil FEMA camp conspiracy theories, even though on the 2004 Republican National Convention in New York City, hundreds of protesters were rounded up and taken to a secret FEMA prison that was secretly built and maintained in an old bus depot on the Hudson River, right there in New York. These are actual photos from inside this secret FEMA prison. Notice the fences and the barbed wire. And of course, as I said earlier, in Hawaii, Justice Antonin Scalia was talking with the University of Hawaii Law School, and he said that you're fooling yourself, you're kidding yourself, if you think that internment camps will not return.
We begin tonight with a newly leaked U.S. Army military police training manual for what they are calling civil disturbance operations. The Army manual outlines the plan to kill rioters and demonstrators in America. That's right, they have plans to confiscate our firearms and kill American citizens on U.S. soil. This during a mass civil unrest, I guess, shooting innocent civilians perhaps. And it goes on to describe how prisoners will be processed through internment camps.
The following video details the contents of a Department of Defense document entitled Internment and Resettlement Operations, also known as FM 3-39.40. The document is 325 pages long and it is signed by Joyce E. Morrow, Administrative Assistant to the Secretary of the Army. It was created in 2010, however, it's just been recently leaked to the public via the internet and can now be downloaded from multiple sources. In the description below, you'll find a download link for the document. I strongly encourage you to download it yourself and to verify everything that's being said here. The document outlines military procedures for internment and resettlement of civilians, and it describes the layout and the administration of these internment camps. It clearly states on page 38 that it applies within U.S. territory, and it specifically addresses the detainment of U.S. citizens, as is indicated by the identification procedures for new prisoners on page 146, which states that social security numbers are to be recorded alongside their photograph and fingerprints. Included in the list of organizations which may be involved in these internment operations are the Department of Homeland Security, FEMA, the Department of Defense, and the United Nations. On page 56, the document outlines the responsibilities of psychological operations officers within the camps, among which it states that a PSYOP officer develops and executes indoctrination programs to reduce or remove antagonistic attitudes and identifies political activists. On page 281, the document goes into more detail regarding the role of psychological operations within the camps, specifically in regards to pacifying the population and ensuring cooperation. On page 238, it gives the conditions for the use of deadly force in such camps. Among the justifications for lethal force, it includes to terminate an active escape attempt. That point right there should make it clear that these camps are not benevolent disaster relief type facilities. On page 244, the document calls for the use of snipers during riots to, quote, scan a crowd and identify agitators and riot leaders for apprehension and fire lethal rounds if warranted. On page 260, it shows the basic layout for a facility focusing on detainment. It is depicted with interrogation areas, tribunal areas, and mortuaries. Each detainment facility is designed to hold 4,000 prisoners, and they are depicted with multiple levels of barbed wire separating compartments within the facilities, with a double barbed wire fence enclosing them, and watched over by 24 guard towers. On page 261, the document depicts the layout for what they call civilian resettlement facilities, which are designed to house 8,000 people. Though it uses the word resettlement, the plans show multiple levels of barbed wire dividing the sections of the facility, with double barbed wire fencing on the outside, as well as 16 guard towers. On page 262, the layout for facilities designed for what they call non-compliant prisoners is shown. These camps are designed to hold up to 300 prisoners, they have 3 interrogation centers, and are guarded by 13 guard towers. Now, if there's any question whether these plans are active or just theoretical, this should be settled by the fact that the U.S. Army has been running ads for job positions in these camps since 2009, and apparently, they're still hiring. Once again, if you look in the description, you'll find all the links you need to verify this information. It's important to note here that this document was created in 2010, which was under the Obama administration, and it predates the NDAA of 2012, which authorized military detainment of U.S. citizens.
How has the United States changed from a humble, peaceful republic into a police state? Have you ever noticed that the government always claims that when it does these things, it does so in the name of safety? When is the last time you heard the government give, as a basis for its behavior, personal freedom?
NDAA, National Defense Authorization Act, that Obama has called for and signed, stipulates that even American citizens can now be targeted by the military, picked up, and imprisoned indefinitely without civilian trial, thus throwing out our due process, our habeas corpus clauses. So we are now in the state of martial law. Everything is now putting conditions for a total war state. I mean, McCain called for the whole America becoming part of the so-called battlefield. America is now a battlefield. The whole earth is a battlefield.
Let's explain what martial law means. Well, martial law just is very simple. It means you're under the responsibility of the military.
During the late 70s, Congress passed legislation called Posse Comitatus, barring the military from operating on American soil. And in the early 80s, there was an effort to circumvent that in Congress by arming police with military-grade weaponry. And now we're seeing that play out in the streets. People in the inner city in the U.S. have been experiencing this. So civilians in the U.S. are now up against basically military-style policing.
The rise of the warrior cop. So, what do you mean?
Our cops are getting increasingly like soldiers. They're being dressed like soldiers, they're being armed like soldiers, they're sent out in the streets told they're fighting a war. And when you do that, we shouldn't be surprised when we see some of the results we've seen at the lead-in, where they start treating American citizens more like enemy combatants than citizens with rights.
Slow transformation into a military police state. We now have police dressed like Army Special Forces, driving armored tanks and holding assault rifles, the sight of which alone is enough to terrify innocent people into submission. The militarization of local police departments is not only changing the way peaceful communities once looked, it's also bringing the battle mentality to our neighborhoods. We may not see police as a threat to us now, but when peace officers are geared up like soldiers, they'll eventually act like they're going to war.
What's amazing is they're willing to say we're going to cut back on the Second Amendment, on the 14th Amendment, we're going to kill you without any identification of what the grounds are to kill you. And what we're going to do now is just make sure that you don't have ammunition. And by the way, it's these right-wingers over there. And make no mistake, Lou, that's who they're talking about. And the people with guns and the people who want to defend themselves, they're worried about some kind of uprising. What is going on in this country?
I have spoken with one federal agent, and the information succinctly boiled down is this. There is an event coming, Steve, in the very near-term future that is going to affect the United States of America to its very soul. That what is being planned, as you and I are on the air tonight, and what has been coming together into that old term, the perfect storm, is literally brewing right over our heads. It is and includes military maneuvers in the United States, military actions that are forthcoming, and that will be so deep and so penetrating that the United States will never be the same.
Would I participate in assisting the feds coming into states and going into homes and taking everybody's gun away? And I said, I would not be a part of something like that. And I said, one of the reasons is I wouldn't want to get shot, because the American people are only going to put up with so much before they push back. And I said, if the feds tried to do that, disarm this country, I said, you would see an uprising and maybe a version of the Second American Revolution.
Whether you believe that we are the highest order of natural selection, or whether you believe, as I do, that we were created by God in His image and likeness, you know in your heart that these natural yearnings, as St. Thomas Aquinas and Thomas Jefferson called them, are our natural rights, are a part of our humanity, and cannot long be denied us. And yet, they have been denied. America, the greatest losses to our freedom have come not from someone attacking us, but from the government ignoring the Constitution and the majority letting them get away with it. And we should make the government afraid of us. Afraid of us. Because as Jefferson reminded us, when the people fear the government, there is tyranny. But when the government fears the people, there is liberty.
United States Flag Code, 8A. The flag should never be displayed with the Union down except as a signal of dire distress in instances of extreme danger to life or property. Our country's going down. It's being dismantled. We're going under UN globalist control. The president acts as a dictator. Now is the time to fly the flag upside down. I mean, this is the time. Mayday, mayday, mayday. Wake up. Get out of your trance. We can use the incendiary nature of the flag upside down to educate the public on why we're doing it. Because what the flag symbolizes is being destroyed. And I've had patriots for 20 years calling in saying, I fly my flag upside down, and my neighbors didn't like it until I explained it to them. And when they come over and say, Bob, why are you flying that upside down? I don't like it. Here's the code. In the country's in dire straits, you're supposed to fly it. That's federal law. If the country is in dire straits, You're to fly the flag upside down. And I mean, we need to get people's attention. We need to get people saying, what's that mean?
I myself am a veteran. I've served numerous tours, and I do not find this disrespectful whatsoever.
They'll say, what's that mean? You write born to kill on your helmet, then you have a peace sign. Oh, something to do with the duality of men. No, this is not the duality of men. It's the proper signal.
Greetings, citizens of America. When will you wake up? The economy is nearing a final collapse. The martial law beta is taking steps to finalize. How can you stay asleep from what is truly going on? Get off the televisions, and start fighting with us for the purpose for humanity and freedom. The coming New World Order is now dangerously close, and we need to stop standing idly by. Do not wait until it is too late. If you continue ignoring the reality, I can guarantee you surely would not ignore the consequences of reality. This is Nazi America, believe it or not. Allow me to tell you the connections between World War II timeline and today's events, correlating them onto plotting the connections. Hitler used the mainstream media to keep the German masses distracted of the work they are doing in today. Then Hitler slowly collapsed the economy, and then there were violence and looterings, since the people have trouble getting food. Then he insisted he will take guns away, to help, and then the German population fell into a complete dictatorship. This is clearly what we are witnessing in America. After the German economy collapsed, then full-blown martial law was in action, and then the troops of Hitler put people into giant burning hot ovens for mass executions. Everything you are seeing is exactly the same strategies that Hitler used and is working again. We have little time to stop this. Now is the time to do something. When it is too late. It is too late, and we will be stuck in the dark ages.
We are anonymous. We are a legion. We do not forgive. We do not forget. Expect us. We are everyone, and no one. We are your brother, your mailman, your doctor, your banker, your garage owner, your babysitter. We are everywhere.